This one goes out to the auditors. Whether you're a First Amendment auditor, a Second Amendment auditor, anybody out there flexing their rights and fighting for our freedoms with a camera and posting it on YouTube. Okay, first off, thank you. Second off, there is some sage advice that you could all use from people who have been doing this since long before there was a camera and long before there was a community of people doing it. The people that formed the first communities that seriously challenged law enforcement in this country were the people that fought on the drug war. Well, at least the first people to do it and win. Okay? We were fighting the cops, and I mean fighting the cops, for the right to smoke weed when it was their word against ours every time. When it was a fully militarized state police, city police, county sheriffs, special units, WEMAT, CMAT, TMAT, A camp, D camp, B camp, anti-marijuana, everything. A full military, fully funded military waging war on us pot smokers. Okay? So you might want to heed what we have to say, considering we're one of the only groups of people in this country, one of the few select groups of people in this country that have fought the fucking law and fucking won. Okay? So this goes out to all of you. From everybody between the most abrasive, aggressive, ridiculous auditor to the calmest, most educated, collected auditor. And I don't care why you got into it, what your end game is. Whether it's to be heavily monetized, to make a living doing this, whatever. Number one, if you're going to take it upon yourself to challenge the law enforcement in particular, there's two things you're going to need. And the first one, before you leave the fucking door of your house, is representation. High caliber lawyers with legal teams. You are fighting the entire might of the justice system, and any sliver of justice that you can fight away from them is going to come to you at great cost. The second thing you need to have is the ability to mostly lose. Because most of the throngs that jump in on the bandwagon are going to get butchered by the system. In large part because they didn't hear what I said in part one. What kind of an idiot thinks they can take on the local fucking sheriff or the local police department without a lawyer? Without a damn good lawyer. And the second piece of advice, and it plays into that. If you are smart enough, driven enough, and focused enough to be a pro se defendant or a pro se plaintiff, then you need to learn law, all of it, every aspect, every word you need to have a clear understanding of. According to Black's Law Dictionary, You need to know what interference is. You need to know what duties are. You need to know every last fucking letter of the law and every last rule of the court. Every last type of tort. Every last type of objection and how they apply it. Everything. You need to know all the rules of evidence. You need to know a fucking lot of shit. And that's why usually the only two people that have any success doing anything that way are lawyers and people in prison who have lots of fucking time. Okay, you guys out there with cameras, I've seen you get roughed up, tossed around a little bit. It ain't shit. I had teeth kicked out, mace, fucking beat, beanbags, fucking shot at, shoved underneath the seat of a van while handcuffed. Underneath the seat of a van. Underneath the seat. They shoved me in there. Kicked in the teeth, curb stomped. Arrested over and over and over and over and over again for charges that never came. My friends were targeted. My family was targeted. Strangers who I bumped elbows with at a restaurant were targeted. The justice system will weaponize the law against anybody attempting to hold them accountable. Count on it. Do yourself a favor if you're in this bubble of auditors and just watching the auditors and the police accountability people and all that. If you're in that bubble, go into their bubble without getting into discussions with people and without getting your ego involved. Go watch the Blue Line channels. Go watch the Pro Cop Bootlicker channels. Go watch how they see things. Because for one, if you want them to understand where you're coming from, you're going to have to know where they're coming from at least. Most tyrants think they're doing the right thing. Most Nazis weren't trying to lock people up in cages and murder them and gas them. And they were just trying to do the right thing. So if you want to reach out to these people and get through to them, you're going to have to know where they're coming from. And God forbid, you're going to have to empathize. You're going to have to be able to feel what they're feeling. And I know no one wants to walk around and even think about living in that kind of fear, especially a patriot. But that's where they are. They live in a state of fear. They fear terrorists, they fear nuclear war, they fear weird things, they fear brown things, they fear everything. Things that move too fast, things that move too slow. And you've got to be able to wrap your head around that if what you're trying to do is get past that fear to the rational human inside and say, wait a minute, this isn't right. What you're doing to me as two humans is not right. So that's the next step in this, in the evolution of the auditing, of the accountability movement. It's going to come down to our own personal culpability in all of this. That has to come through in the way that you audit. Um, the guys who scream and yell at the tyrants, I can name names, uh, Direct D, Spitting Cobra, Tyrant Hunters, a few of them out there that are pretty abrasive. But they're abrasive to the people who earn it. And I'm all for calling a cockface. But there's other people out there being abrasive to people just because they're ignorant. And the correct response to somebody's ignorance is not anger. It's not aggression. The correct response to ignorance is enlightenment. It's education. It's sharing. Of all the postal audits I've seen, I've yet to see anybody carrying a poster 7 to hand to the employees. So making yourself palatable to the people you're trying to educate has to be part of it as well. Now, there are certain individuals, like some of the individuals in Mesa and Gilbert, and, especially in law enforcement, that are just, because it attracts that personality and mentality, there are just certain individuals that don't deserve anything but a big fat fuck you. But there's also a lot of people getting caught up in these things that are just not that fucking smart, and by no fault of their own, don't know their job. So the auditors should remember that they don't always know what they're doing either. And the last thing I want to say is that I've seen the mass availability of cameras, and more so of live stream, cause a radical shift in culture. I like to say honest cops and Bigfoots disappeared off the planet the minute the camera was available to everybody. The problem with policing is the same problem that there's always been with policing forever. The ruling class, the elite, who long ago co-opted and corrupted every government and every bank on the planet, are tyrants. And they pass oppressive laws in their countries. And the police forces enforce those tyrannical laws. How many cops that enforced Jim Crow while it was on the books were prosecuted for it? 0. And they would beat you up and drag you off the bus for having the audacity to sit your black ass where you wanted to. So, exposing the corruption that is the root, the heart of law enforcement is very important, because the first thing we're going to have to do if we want to hold our public officials accountable is put their dogs on a leash. So, hire a lawyer, know what the fuck you're talking about. Don't fuck with stupid people because they're stupid. Enlighten them, or leave them alone. And understand that the corruption is complete and total throughout all of our society. And in order to change things with the police or the justice system, we need to change how we behave and who we give our money to. and who we vote for and who we put into power. That's my message to anybody and everybody that's doing audits of any kind.